Welcome to the family. If you enjoy powerful stories and wild adventures, subscribe now, hit like and share with someone who will love it too. The transport ship Stellar Dawn hummed through the void between star systems, carrying its diverse cargo of passengers from 12 different species to the neutral trading hub of Nexus Station. In the cramped passenger compartment, humans mingled, uncomfortably with beings they'd only recently learned existed. Jake Martinez pressed his face against the small porthole, watching the stars streak past in brilliant lines. As a maintenance engineer heading to his new posting on Nexus Station, he'd never imagined he'd be traveling alongside actual aliens. The Galactic Council had only made contact with Earth 6 months ago, and everything still felt surreal. A soft whimper caught his attention. Across the narrow aisle, a young alien woman sat hunched over, her forearms wrapped around what appeared to be her legs. She had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly under the ship's artificial lighting, and her elongated limbs gave her an elegant, almost ethereal appearance. Her species, the Villani, if Jake remembered correctly, were known for their grace and artistic abilities. The alien girl's face was contorted in obvious pain, and she kept shifting her position, trying to find relief. Her breathing came in short, shallow gasps, and small tears had formed in her large, silver eyes. Jake glanced around the compartment. Most of the other passengers were either sleeping or absorbed in their own activities. The ship's medical bay was supposedly staffed, but he'd heard rumors that the doctor was more interested in studying alien physiology than actually treating patients. His conscience wouldn't let him ignore someone in distress, regardless of species. "Excuse me," Jake said quietly, leaning across the aisle. "Are you all right?" The Villani woman looked up, startled. Her silver eyes were wide with surprise, and she seemed to shrink back slightly. Most aliens Jake had encountered were still wary of humans. Their species had quite the reputation for being unpredictable and sometimes violent. I am experiencing some discomfort," she admitted in accented but clear Standard Galactic. Her voice was melodic, with a slight harmonic undertone that was characteristic of her species. "But I do not wish to trouble anyone." "You're not troubling me," Jake assured her, offering what he hoped was a reassuring smile. "I'm Jake, by the way, Jake Martinez." "I am Lira," she replied hesitantly. "Lira of the Silver Stream clan." Jake noticed how she continued to massage her lower legs with all 4 of her hands, wincing as she did so. "What's wrong with your legs, if you don't mind me asking?" Lyra's cheeks flushed a deeper shade of blue. "My species. We are not designed for long periods of sitting in cramped spaces. Our circulatory system is different from most others. When we cannot move freely, the fluid in our lower extremities becomes stagnant. It is quite painful." Jake nodded thoughtfully. He'd dealt with similar circulation issues during his years working in tight spaces aboard various ships and stations. "Have you tried elevating them? Or maybe some gentle massage to get the circulation going again?" Lira looked puzzled. "Massage? I am unfamiliar with this term." "It's a technique we humans use to stimulate blood flow and relieve muscle tension," Jake explained. "We use our hands to apply pressure and movement to affected areas. It can be very effective for circulation." "Problems?" The alien woman's eyes widened with interest, but then she looked uncertain. I do not know if such a thing would be appropriate. Our species has certain customs." "I understand," Jake said quickly, not wanting to make her uncomfortable. "But if you're in pain, maybe it's worth considering. I've had training in basic massage therapy. I used to help my fellow crew members when they got sore from long shifts." Lira bit her lower lip, which Jake noticed was the same pale blue as the rest of her skin. The pain in her legs was clearly getting worse, and she was beginning to draw concerned looks from other passengers. If you truly believe it might help," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, "then perhaps just for a few minutes?" Jake nodded and carefully moved to kneel beside her seat. "I'll be very gentle, and you tell me immediately if anything feels wrong or uncomfortable, okay?" Lira nodded nervously, extending one of her long, slender legs. Her skin felt surprisingly warm to the touch, and Jake could immediately sense the tension in her muscles. He began with light, careful movements, working his way from her ankle upward. The effect was almost immediate. Lira's eyes widened in amazement as the pain began to subside, replaced by a sensation unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Around them, other passengers had begun to take notice of the unusual sight, a human tending to an alien with such care and gentleness. What none of them realized was that this simple act of kindness was about to change everything. As Jake's skilled hands worked along Lira's leg, something extraordinary began to happen. The pale blue shimmer of her skin started to intensify, growing brighter with each gentle stroke. At first, Jake thought it might be a normal response, perhaps Vellani skin, changed color when they were relaxed, like some earth creatures. But Lira's reaction suggested something far more significant. "By the ancient streams," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. I can feel the energy pathways opening." Jake paused, concerned. "Energy pathways? Should I stop? I don't want to hurt you." "No, no," Lira said quickly, her 4 hands reaching out to prevent him from pulling away. "Please continue. This is remarkable. I have never experienced anything like this." As Jake resumed the massage, the shimmer in Lira's skin began to spread. What had started as a localized glow around her leg was now extending upward, creating intricate patterns that seemed to flow like liquid light beneath her skin. Other passengers were beginning to stare openly now. A tall reptilian Krex businessman lowered his datapad, his golden eyes fixed on the growing light show. 2 fungoid spores in the corner ceased their constant chittering, their bioluminescent caps pulsing in apparent excitement. "Lyra," Jake said softly, "what's happening to you?" The Vellani woman's eyes were closed now, and her breathing had become deep and rhythmic. "The ancient texts speak of this," she murmured. "The resonance of harmony. It was thought to be legend." "What's the resonance of harmony?" Before Lira could answer, a new voice cut through the murmur of interested passengers. "Step away from her immediately." Jake looked up to see a tall Vellani male striding down the aisle, his expression thunderous. Unlike Lira's pale blue skin, his was a deeper shade with silver markings that Jake guessed indicated higher status. His 4 arms were crossed in what was obviously an aggressive posture. "Elder Caney," Lira said, opening her eyes. The glow in her skin immediately began to fade. "I was merely—" "You were allowing an alien to touch you inappropriately," Caney snapped, his harmonious voice now sharp with anger. "Have you forgotten all propriety, all tradition?" Jake stood up, placing himself between Caney and Lira. "Now hold on. She was in pain and I was just trying to help. There was nothing inappropriate about it." Caney's silver eyes fixed on Jake with obvious disdain. "Humans," he said, as if the word tasted bitter. "You understand nothing of our ways, yet you presume to interfere. The resonance is sacred, not to be triggered by the crude manipulations of lesser species." "Lesser species?" Jake felt his temper rising. "Listen, buddy, I don't care what your customs are. She was suffering and I helped. If that offends you, that's your problem." The confrontation was drawing attention from throughout the passenger compartment. Jake could see various aliens whispering among themselves, some pointing at Lira, whose skin still held traces of the strange luminescence. "You have no idea what you have done," Caney continued, his voice rising. "The resonance of harmony is not merely a physical response. It is a spiritual awakening, a sacred bond between souls. It has not occurred in our people for over 3 centuries. 3 centuries, Jake repeated, confused. "What does that mean?" Lira spoke up from behind him, her voice trembling with emotion. "It means," she said slowly, "that according to our oldest legends you have awakened something in me that was thought lost forever. The ability to resonate with another being's life force, to share energy and consciousness itself." The entire passenger compartment had fallen silent now. Even the ship's ambient hum seemed quieter as everyone strained to listen. "That's impossible," Caney declared. "The resonance can only occur between 2 Vellani of perfect spiritual compatibility. It is the foundation of our most sacred bonding rituals. A human could never—" His words were cut off as Lira suddenly gasped. The luminous patterns in her skin flared to life again, brighter than before. But this time, something even more extraordinary happened. Jake felt a warm, tingling sensation spreading up his arms. Looking down, he was amazed to see faint traces of the same light appearing under his own skin, following the same flowing patterns that decorated Lira's body. Impossible, Caney breathed, stumbling backward. Around them, the other passengers erupted in excited chatter. Datapads and recording devices appeared as beings from multiple species began documenting what they were witnessing. Jake stared at his glowing arms in wonder. "Lira, what's happening to us?" The young Villani woman stood up slowly, her legs now free of pain. The light patterns flowed across her entire body now, pulsing in perfect synchronization with the fainter glow emanating from Jake. "I believe," she said, her voice filled with wonder and perhaps a touch of fear, "that we have just made first contact of an entirely different kind." The ship's medical bay buzzed with activity as Dr. Voss, a stern-faced Altarian with 6 arms and compound eyes, ran every scanner he could find over both Jake and Lira. The luminous patterns under their skin had stabilized into a steady, gentle glow that seemed to pulse in harmony between them. "Fascinating," Dr. Voss muttered, his multiple appendages working various instruments simultaneously. "The quantum resonance readings are off the charts. I'm detecting synchronized brainwave patterns, matched cardiovascular rhythms, and what appears to be actual quantum entanglement at the cellular level." Elder Caney stood in the corner, his silver-marked arms crossed tightly. He'd followed them to the medical bay, alternating between outraged pronouncements and stunned silence. "This is sacrilege," he insisted for the 10th time. "The sacred. A resonance cannot possibly occur with an alien species. And yet," Dr. Voss replied dryly, "my instruments don't lie. These two beings are exhibiting the exact physiological markers described in your own ancient texts regarding the resonance of harmony. Their bioenergetic fields are completely synchronized." Jake sat on the examination table next to Lira, still, marveling at the strange sensations flowing through his body. He could feel her presence in a way that defied description, not just her physical proximity, but something deeper. Her emotions, her thoughts, seemed to dance at the edge of his consciousness. "Can you sense what I'm feeling?" Lira asked softly. And Jake realized she was experiencing the same phenomenon. "It's like you're part of me now," Jake admitted. "I can feel your curiosity, your wonder. And underneath that there's fear. Fear of what this means." Lira nodded, her large silver eyes reflecting the glow from both their bodies. "Our ancient texts speak of the resonance as the highest form of spiritual connection. When two souls achieve perfect harmony, they become linked across space and time itself. But it was said to be impossible between different bloodlines, let alone different species." "Impossible or not," Dr. Voss interjected, waving a scanner that beeped excitedly, "it's happening. And the implications are staggering. If humans can achieve this level of quantum entanglement with Villani, what about other species? This could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness itself." The medical bay doors hissed open, and Captain Torres entered, her weathered face creased with concern. "Doctor, I'm getting reports from all over the ship. Passengers are demanding to know what's happening. Some are calling it a miracle, others are convinced it's some kind of contamination." "Captain," Dr. Voss replied, "what you're looking at here is perhaps the most significant xenobiological discovery in recorded galactic history. These two individuals have achieved a level of biological and quantum synchronization that shouldn't be possible according to everything we know about interspecies compatibility." Captain Torres studied Jake and Lira with shrewd eyes. "Are they dangerous to themselves or others?" "Not that I can determine," the doctor replied. "If anything, they appear to be in perfect health. Better than perfect, actually. They're vital. Signs are optimal. Stress indicators are at baseline, and their immune systems are functioning at peak efficiency." "It's because we're complete now," Lira said suddenly, her voice distant. "I can feel it. The missing pieces of myself that I never knew were gone. Jake fills them. And I can sense that he feels the same." Jake nodded, understanding flooding through him. "It's like we were always meant to find each other. I know how crazy that sounds, but the moment I started helping you, something just clicked into place." Elder Caney stepped forward, his expression conflicted. If what you claim is true, if the resonance has truly manifested between you, then you are bound by laws older than recorded history. The resonated must never be separated. To do so would cause unbearable suffering for both parties, and potentially death. Death? Captain Torres repeated sharply. The ancient texts are quite clear, Caney continued reluctantly. Once the resonance is established, the two souls become dependent on each other for spiritual and emotional sustenance. Separation beyond a certain distance causes a cascade failure of the nervous system. Jake felt a chill of fear, not just his own, but reflected from Lira as well. How far apart can we be? The texts speak of a few hundred meters at most, Caney replied. Beyond that, the connection begins to weaken, causing pain and disorientation. Much further, and the consequences become severe. Dr. Voss looked up from his instruments with excitement. But think of the possibilities. If we can understand how this connection works, we might be able to replicate it. Imagine the benefits. Perfect understanding between species, enhanced cognitive abilities, shared knowledge and experiences. You speak of weaponizing the sacred, Caney protested. The resonance is not some tool to be studied and replicated. It is a gift from the cosmos itself, granted only to those whose souls are destined to unite. Maybe he's right, Jake said quietly. Maybe some things aren't meant to be dissected and analyzed. Maybe they're just supposed to be experienced. Lira reached out and took his hand with two of hers. The glow in their skin intensified at the contact, and Jake felt a wave of warmth and contentment wash over him. Whatever this is, she said, whatever it means for our futures, I'm grateful it happened. For the first time in my life, I feel truly whole. Captain Torres cleared her throat. Well, whatever cosmic forces are at work here, we'll be docking at Nexus Station in 18 hours. I suggest you both use that time to figure out what you're going to do next, because something tells me your lives just got a lot more complicated. Nexus Station sprawled across the void like a metallic flower, its rotating sections housing millions of beings from across the galaxy. As the stellar dawn approached the docking bay, Jake and Lira stood together at the observation deck, their hands intertwined, watching their destination grow larger. I've never been to Nexus before, Lira admitted, her harmonious voice tinged with nervousness. My people rarely travel beyond our home systems. It's going to be overwhelming, Jake warned. Thousands of different species, all mixing together. The sensory overload alone can be intense. As if responding to their conversation, the glow beneath their skin pulsed gently, and Jake felt Lira's anxiety ease as his own calm confidence flowed to her through their connection. That's still incredible, he murmured. How we can share emotions like that. Their moment of peace was interrupted by the approach of Elder Kane, who had been unusually quiet during the final hours of their journey. His expression was troubled, more so than the general disapproval he'd shown earlier. We need to talk, he said urgently, glancing around to make sure they weren't overheard. There are things about the resonance that I have not told you, things that could put you both in great danger. Jake frowned. What kind of danger? Caney gestured for them to follow him to a more secluded part of the observation deck. When he was sure they were alone, he began to speak in hushed tones. The resonance of harmony is not merely a spiritual phenomenon, he explained. Those who achieve it gain abilities beyond normal understanding, enhanced intuition, the ability to sense deception, accelerated healing, and, in some cases, precognitive. Flashes. Precognitive, Lira repeated. You mean seeing the future? Glimpses only, Caney clarified, but enough to make the resonated extremely valuable to certain organizations. As if summoned by his words, Jake suddenly felt a chill of warning that didn't originate from his own mind. Through his connection with Lira, he sensed her sudden spike of fear and turned to see what had alarmed her. 3 figures were approaching from across the observation deck. They moved with the coordinated precision of professionals, and something about their purposeful stride set off every alarm bell Jake had developed during his years working dangerous industrial jobs. Friends of yours? Jake asked Caney quietly. The Villani elder's skin had gone several shades paler. The syndicate, he whispered. How did they find out so quickly? The lead figure was a tall, pale humanoid with cybernetic implants covering half his face. His companions appeared to be a heavily muscled Krex, and something Jake didn't recognize, a being made of what looked like living shadow. "Elder Caney," the cyborg said as he approached, his voice mechanically modulated. And the famous resonated. "Per, my name is Director Vale. I represent certain interested parties who would very much like to meet with you." "We're not interested," Jake replied immediately. Something about these beings triggered every survival instinct he possessed. "I think you misunderstand," Vale continued smoothly. "This wasn't really a request. The resonance of harmony is far too valuable to leave to chance encounters. My employers have been waiting 3 centuries for another pair to manifest." "Waiting?" Lira asked, her 4 hands unconsciously moving to defensive positions. "Oh yes," Vale smiled, an expression made grotesque by his cybernetic alterations. "The last resonated pair proved quite useful for our operations. Their enhanced abilities made them exceptional at infiltration, information gathering, and persuasion. Unfortunately, they eventually outlived their usefulness." Elder Caney stepped forward, his passive demeanor replaced by something much more dangerous. "The resonated are protected by ancient law. You cannot simply—" His words were cut off as the shadow being moved with impossible speed, extending tendrils of darkness that wrapped around Caney's limbs, lifting him off the ground. "Ancient laws," Vale mused, "have little meaning in the modern galaxy, especially when there's profit to be made." Jake felt rage building inside him, not just his own, but Lira's as well, amplifying and feeding back through their connection. The glow beneath their skin intensified dramatically, and suddenly the observation deck was bathed in brilliant light. "Let him go," Jake demanded, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the station's metal structure. Vale's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on them. "Fascinating. The resonance is even stronger than our models predicted. You'll be perfect for what we have planned." The Krex enforcer pulled out what looked like a neural disruption weapon, but as he raised it, something extraordinary happened. Jake and Lira moved as one, their actions perfectly synchronized despite never having trained together. Lira dove low while Jake went high, their combined assault catching the alien enforcer completely off guard. More importantly, their shared anger and determination seemed to be affecting the environment around them. The station's lights flickered, and Jake could hear electronic systems throughout the section beginning to malfunction. "Impossible," Vale breathed. "The resonance field is interfering with our equipment." Through their connection, Jake felt Lira's sudden flash of understanding. "The ship," she gasped. "We need to get back to the ship. Captain Torres needs to know what's happening." But as they turned to run, more Syndicate operatives emerged from concealment throughout the observation deck. They were surrounded, and Elder Caney was still trapped in the shadow being's grasp. "There's nowhere to run," Vale said calmly. "Nexus Station has been under Syndicate influence for years. You belong to us now." Jake felt Lira's hand squeeze his tightly, and through their bond, he sensed her making a desperate decision. "Hold on," she whispered. "This is going to be intense." Before Jake could ask what she meant, Lira closed her eyes and the glow beneath her skin exploded outward, in a brilliant pulse of energy that washed over the entire observation deck. The pulse of energy from Lira's resonance field swept across the observation deck like a wave of liquid light. Every electronic device within 50 meters sparked and died. Emergency lighting kicked in, and the Syndicate operatives stumbled backward, their cybernetic enhancements fritzing and malfunctioning. "What did you do?" Jake gasped, feeling the enormous drain on both their energy reserves through their connection. "I don't know," Lira admitted, swaying on her feet. "I just knew we needed to stop them, and suddenly I could feel all the electronic patterns around us. I thought if I could disrupt them—" Director Vale's cybernetic eye was sparking, half his face twitching as his implants struggled to reboot. "Impossible," he snarled. "No Villani has ever demonstrated technological manipulation through resonance fields." The shadow being had released Elder Caney, who dropped to the deck, gasping. "Because," Caney said weakly, "no Villani has ever achieved resonance with a human before. Your species' natural affinity for technology, combined with our energy manipulation abilities. You've created something entirely new. Throughout the observation deck, other passengers were gathering, drawn by the commotion and the spectacular light show. Jake noticed several of them were recording everything on personal devices that had somehow survived the electromagnetic pulse. "This is getting out of hand," Jake muttered, helping Lira stay upright as exhaustion from their energy expenditure hit both of them simultaneously. Captain Torres's voice crackled over the station's emergency communication system. "All passengers, return to the ship immediately. We have reports of hostile activity in multiple sections. This is not a drill." The Krek's enforcer, his weapon now completely dead, stepped forward menacingly. But before he could reach them, something unexpected happened. The other passengers, beings from a dozen different species, moved to form a protective circle around Jake and Lira. "You will not harm the resonated," declared an elderly Spore, his bioluminescent cap pulsing with indignation. "What we have witnessed here is a miracle of cosmic significance." "Indeed," added a tall crystalline being whose species Jake didn't recognize. "The harmony they have achieved transcends anything in recorded history. They must be protected." Vale looked around at the growing crowd of protective aliens, his expression calculating. "Stand aside. This doesn't concern any of you." "On the contrary," said Dr. Voss, who had appeared with a medical team. "As the ship's chief medical officer, these individuals are under my care. Any attempt to harm them would be considered an act of piracy under Galactic Council law." Jake felt a surge of gratitude, not just from himself but reflected through his bond with Lira. The diverse group of beings who had been complete strangers just hours ago were now willing to risk their safety to protect them. "This isn't over," Vale threatened, but Jake could see uncertainty in his remaining organic eye. Whatever plan the Syndicate had, it clearly hadn't accounted for this level of public attention and protection. As they made their way back to the ship under the watchful guard of their fellow passengers, Elder Caney walked beside them, his expression thoughtful. "I owe you both an apology," he said quietly. "I was so focused on tradition and propriety that I failed to see the greater significance of what has occurred. The resonance between different species, it could change everything." "How so?" Lira asked, though Jake could sense she was beginning to understand through their shared consciousness. "Think about it," Caney explained. "If humans and Vellani can achieve resonance, what about other species combinations? What if the galaxy's different peoples could form these deep connections, share understanding and empathy at the most fundamental level?" Jake felt a flash of precognitive insight, not his own but something flowing from Lira's consciousness to his. He saw glimpses of a possible future, beings from across the galaxy forming resonance bonds, sharing knowledge and emotion, creating unprecedented cooperation and understanding, but he also saw darker possibilities. The Syndicate and other criminal organizations hunting down the resonated, using their abilities for profit and control, turning what should be a force for unity into a tool of oppression. "We're not safe," he said suddenly. "Even if we get back to the ship, they'll follow us. The Syndicate has resources across the galaxy." "Then we need allies," Lira replied, her harmonious voice carrying newfound determination. "And we need to understand these abilities better. If we're going to survive, we need to learn what we're truly capable of." As they boarded the Stellar Dawn, Jake noticed that their fellow passengers were looking at them differently now, not with the wariness or curiosity they'd shown before, but with something approaching reverence. "No pressure," he muttered to Lira, as they settled into their seats for what would likely be a very different kind of journey than either had originally planned. Through their bond, he felt her mixture of fear and excitement, determination and uncertainty. But underneath it all was something stronger, a sense of purpose that seemed to grow with each passing moment. "Jake," she said softly, "I think we're about to become very important to a lot of people." "Yeah," he replied, watching Nexus Station recede through the porthole as Captain Torres took them away from immediate danger. "The question is, are we going to let them use us, or are we going to use this gift to make things better?" The glow beneath their skin pulsed in harmony, and Jake realized that question would define not just their future, but possibly the future of the entire galaxy. 3 weeks after the incident at Nexus Station, Jake and Lira found themselves in an underground facility on the remote mining world of Kepler-7. The hideout had been provided by an unexpected ally, Captain Torres, who had revealed herself to be part of a covert network dedicated to protecting individuals with unique abilities from exploitation by groups like the Syndicate. "We call ourselves the Haven Network," Torres explained as she led them through corridors carved directly from the planet's rocky core. "We've been operating for over 50 years, ever since the first reports of beings with extraordinary abilities being kidnapped and weaponized." The facility was larger than Jake had expected, with dozens of chambers housing individuals from various species. As they walked, he caught glimpses of remarkable abilities: a fungoid who could communicate with technology directly, twin Altarians who shared a telepathic link, and a human woman who seemed to phase in and out of visibility. "How many are there?" Lira asked, her skin glowing softly in response to the emotional residue of hope and fear that permeated the facility. "More than you might think. Fewer than we need," Torres replied cryptically. "But you two, you're something special." Word has spread throughout the galaxy about what happened at Nexus Station. "Both our allies and our enemies are very interested in meeting you." They were brought to a large chamber where several individuals waited. Jake immediately recognized Elder Caney, who had insisted on accompanying them despite the danger to himself. But the others were strangers, a mix of species, all of whom emanated the same sense of extraordinary capability that Jake was learning to associate with the gifted. "Welcome," said a tall woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold starlight. "I'm Commander Nova. I coordinate Haven network operations in this sector." As introductions were made, Jake learned that each person in the room possessed abilities that defied conventional understanding. But what struck him most was how they all seemed to resonate with each other on some level, not as strongly as his bond with Lira, but enough to create an atmosphere of deep understanding and trust. "We've been monitoring Syndicate activity since your escape," Nova continued. "They've tripled their efforts to locate individuals with abilities. Something has them spooked." "Us," Lira said quietly. "They're afraid of what we represent." A young man with scales and fins identified himself as Reef spoke up. "We've intercepted communications suggesting they believe your type of cross-species resonance could be replicated artificially. They're calling it Project Harmony." Jake felt a chill of revulsion flow through his bond with Lira. The idea of the Syndicate trying to manufacture what they had naturally achieved felt like a profound violation. "Can it be done?" he asked. "Could they actually force this kind of connection?" Elder Caney shook his head. "The true resonance cannot be artificially induced. It requires genuine spiritual compatibility, selfless intent, and what your species might call pure love. But they could create crude approximations, painful, unstable connections that would give them some of the abilities without the emotional harmony." "Enslaved psychics," Nova said grimly. "Beings forced into artificial bonds used as living weapons until the stress destroys them." Through his connection with Lira, Jake felt her sudden surge of determination. "We can't let that happen. If there are others out there like us, others who could achieve natural resonance—" "There are," interrupted a quiet voice from the back of the room. A small elderly being with crystalline features stepped forward. "I am Seer Valdris. My abilities allow me to perceive quantum probability streams. I have seen potential futures where resonated pairs exist throughout the galaxy. Humans with Villani, yes, but also other combinations. Kreks with fungoids, Altarians with crystalline, even some triple and quadruple bonds." Jake's mind reeled at the implications. "You're talking about a fundamental change in how species interact." "Evolution," Valdris agreed. "But only if the natural process is allowed to unfold. The Syndicate's interference could corrupt it, turn it into something monstrous." Commander Nova activated a holographic display showing star maps with red warning zones spreading across multiple sectors. "They're moving fast. Our intelligence suggests they have facilities on at least 12 worlds where they're conducting experiments on captured individuals with abilities. We have to stop them," Lira said, her four hands clenched with determination. "We?" Nova raised an eyebrow. "You two are valuable beyond measure. We can't risk—" With respect, Commander. Jake interrupted. We're not going to hide while others suffer. Our connection, it's not just about us. It's about proving that different species can achieve perfect harmony. That has to mean something. Through their bond, he felt Lira's complete agreement, along with something else, a growing awareness of abilities they hadn't yet explored. We've been practicing, Lira explained, as if reading his thoughts. The resonance is growing stronger. We can sense electronic systems from much greater distances now, and yesterday... She paused, looking uncertain. Yesterday we shared a dream, Jake finished. Not just emotions or thoughts, but actual experiences. I saw through her eyes as a child on her homeworld, and she experienced my memories of Earth. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Memory sharing across species barriers, Valdris whispered. The consciousness blending described. In the oldest prophecies, Elder Caney stepped forward, his expression awed. You are becoming something unprecedented. Not just resonated, but truly unified beings. Two souls becoming one while remaining distinct. Which makes you even more valuable to the Syndicate, Nova pointed out grimly, and more dangerous to their plans. If beings across the galaxy see what true harmony looks like, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights bathed. The chamber as Commander Nova's communication device crackled to life. Ma'am, we have Syndicate ships dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple contacts heavily armed. They've found us. Jake and Lira's skin began to glow as their shared alarm triggered their resonance field. Around them, the other gifted individuals, prepared for battle, their various abilities manifesting in spectacular displays of light, energy, and transformation. It seems, Nova said grimly, your education in galactic politics is about to become very practical indeed. The underground facility shook as the first Syndicate bombardment struck the surface of Kepler-7. Dust rained from the ceiling as emergency systems activated throughout the Haven Network's hidden base. Evacuation Protocol 7, Commander, Nova ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. All non-combatant personnel to the deep shelters. Combat-capable individuals, prepare for surface engagement. Jake felt Lira's spike of fear through their bond, but it was immediately tempered by her growing determination. Over the past weeks, their connection had deepened beyond anything either had thought possible. They could now share not just emotions and thoughts, but actual sensory experiences and memories. We're not running, Jake said firmly, his hand finding Lira's as their combined glow intensified. If the Syndicate wants us, they'll have to go through us first. Jake's right, Lira added, her harmonious voice carrying new overtones of power. We've learned things about our abilities that could help everyone here. Elder Caney, who had been meditating in preparation for battle, opened his silver eyes. The ancient texts speak of resonated pairs who could amplify the abilities of others. If you two have truly achieved that level of unity... Another bombardment shook the facility, this one closer. Through the rock walls, Jake could sense the electronic signatures of approaching Syndicate forces. But more than that, he could feel something else, the fear and determination of every person in the facility, as if his awareness had expanded, beyond just his connection with Lira. Do you feel that? Lira whispered, her 4 hands pressed to her temples. Everyone, Jake breathed. I can sense everyone. Seer Valdris stepped forward, his crystalline features reflecting the growing light, emanating from the bonded pair. It is beginning, the great resonance spoken of in the oldest prophecies. When the first true cross-species bond is threatened, it reaches out to awaken others. Around the chamber, something extraordinary began to happen. The other gifted individuals started to glow with their own internal light, not as bright as Jake and Lira's resonance, but growing stronger by the moment. Reef, the scaled aquatic being, gasped as his ability to manipulate water expanded into control over all liquids. The human woman who could phase watched in amazement as her power stabilized, allowing her to selectively phase different parts of her body. Impossible, Commander Nova breathed, then caught herself as her own latent abilities, long dormant tactical precognition, suddenly flared to life. She could see the battle unfolding above, multiple potential outcomes spreading before her like a tree of possibilities. Not impossible, Jake said. understanding flowing through him from sources he couldn't identify. This is what the resonance was always meant to do, not just connect two individuals, but serve as a catalyst for the awakening of consciousness across species barriers. The facility's main blast door suddenly groaned and began to buckle. Through their enhanced senses, Jake and Lira could feel the syndicate forces breaking through the outer defenses. Director Vale is with them, Lira observed, her awareness extending. Far beyond the physical barriers, along with something else, something artificial. They've brought one of their synthetic resonated, Elder Caney realized with horror. A being forcibly bonded to cybernetic systems, driven mad by the unnatural connection. As if summoned by his words, a figure burst through the failing blast door in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. It had once been humanoid, but now was more machine than biological. Cybernetic implants covered most of its body, connected by pulsing cables to a backpack-mounted power source. Its eyes glowed with artificial fire, and when it spoke, its voice was a harmony of pain and rage. "Found you," it hissed. "The pure ones, the natural bond. Give it to us. Give us the piece you stole." Behind it came Director Vale and a squad of syndicate operatives, their weapons trained on the assembled defenders. "Magnificent," Vale said, his cybernetic eye focusing on Jake and Lira. "Even better than our models predicted. You're not just resonated, you're a resonance amplifier. Imagine what we could accomplish with an army of enhanced individuals under our control." "Over our dead bodies," Jake replied. But even as he spoke, he felt the synthetic resonated's artificial field trying to interfere with his connection to Lira. It was like having someone scream directly into his mind. The creature lunged forward. Within human speed, its cybernetic limbs extending razor-sharp appendages, but it never reached them. Every enhanced individual in the chamber moved as one, their newly amplified abilities working in perfect coordination. Reef created a wall of liquid that hardened instantly, while the phasing woman appeared behind the creature and disrupted its power connections. More importantly, Jake and Lira discovered they could do something neither had attempted before. Reaching out through their connection, they touched the tormented mind of the synthetic resonated. What they found was heartbreaking. It had once been a young Krex named Thane, captured by the Syndicate and subjected to forced bonding procedures that had left his mind shattered. The artificial connection to the cybernetic systems was causing him constant agony. "We can help you," Lira said gently, her voice somehow reaching through the technological interference to touch what remained of Thane's original consciousness. "No help," Thane replied, but Jake could sense the desperate hope hidden beneath his conditioned responses. "Only pain, only service. Give us the pure bond." Instead of fighting him, Jake and Lira did something unprecedented. They opened their connection, allowing Thane to experience what true willing resonance felt like. The effect was immediate and profound. Thane's artificial systems began to overload as his organic consciousness, for the first time in years, remembered what harmony felt like instead of the forced discord of his cybernetic bonds. "What are you doing?" Vale demanded, raising his own weapon. "Stop interfering with our asset." But it was too late. Thane's scream of anguish transformed into something else, a cry of liberation as his consciousness broke free from the Syndicate's control programs. The cybernetic implants began to spark and fail as his own will reasserted itself. "I remember," Thane whispered, his voice losing its mechanical distortion. "I remember who I was before they took me." The liberation of one synthetic resonated, sent shockwaves through whatever network the Syndicate was using to control their other artificial constructs. Throughout the facility, communication devices began receiving distress signals from other Syndicate facilities as their captive psychics began to awaken. "You have no idea what you've done," Vale snarled. But Jake could sense his desperation. The Syndicate's entire operation depended on maintaining control over their artificial constructs. "We know exactly what we've done," Jake replied, feeling power flowing through him from every awakened individual in the chamber. "We've shown them what real connection feels like, and now they're going to choose freedom." The glow emanating from Jake and Lira intensified until it filled the entire chamber with brilliant light. But this time, it wasn't just their resonance. Every being present was contributing to the effect. their individual abilities harmonizing into something greater than the sum of its parts. "This is what the galaxy could be," Lira said, her voice carrying across species barriers to speak directly to the hearts of everyone present. Not conquest or control, but willing cooperation. Not forced bonds, but chosen harmony. Director Vale and his operatives found themselves surrounded by beings whose abilities had been enhanced beyond anything they'd prepared for. More importantly, they could feel the psychic resonance washing over them, showing them glimpses of what true cooperation and understanding could accomplish. Some of the Syndicate operatives began lowering their weapons, their own latent abilities responding to the call of the Great Resonance. "The age of exploitation is ending," Commander Nova announced, her tactical precognition showing her a future bright with possibility. "The age of true galactic unity is beginning, and in facilities across the galaxy, artificial constructs began to remember their original selves, breaking free from the chains of forced servitude to choose their own paths toward harmony." Jake squeezed Lyra's hand as they stood at the center of a transformation that would reshape the galaxy. What had begun with a simple act of kindness, a massage to ease pain, had become something far greater, proof that different species could not just coexist, but truly become one while celebrating their differences. The human had given the alien girl a leg massage, and what happened next changed the course of galactic civilization forever. The end.